J R R Tolkien was a magnificent author who certainly left his mark on the world. It's kind of hard to argue that, and in fact, it's so prominent that when people even think of fantasy, they generally end up conjuring mental images of Frodo and Gandalf, the One Ring, and Sauron. And let's be honest, most likely they're looking and thinking of Orlando Bloom's Legolas, and who could blame them, but whatever. Tolkien inspired a lot of people, myself among them. And part of what is involved in that inspiration is people want to take something that spoke to them from his work and put an aspect of him to pay homage or just because they liked it into their work. So you take this bit here and that bit there and you put it together with the other bits that you found or come up with over the course of time. That's how we make our own contributions to the world of literature. But here's the thing, in order to use something, you have to understand it. There's a lot to be respected and respected. There's a lot to be respected and admired about Tolkien's work. He has an incredibly deep world setting, and races are amazingly complex. I mean, he wrote at least 2.5 languages just for the story. Granted, they're mostly just small alterations of existing languages, but the fact that he did it at all is amazing. But there's one thing about Tolkien's work that only will work for him and won't work for anybody else because it's not good in and of itself. That would be his orcs. I'm the Worldsmith, and today we're going to be talking about why Tolkien's orcs worked for him, but will not, under any circumstances, work for you. So, let's start off with why did Tolkien's orcs work for him? Well, let's think about what his orcs are. They're brutal, they're vicious, they're cruel, they're, believe it or not, intelligent. They come up with those siege engines. It's not Sauron building those, they build those. They're known to be crafty, but they're also completely wicked and evil at heart. They hate everything, including themselves. They hate beauty. Their only goal is to mercilessly crush everything in their path, it seems. They take orders, and other than that, when they're not taking orders, they're just destructiveness. Tolkien was using the orcs to convey a message. As everyone else does, he had a story to tell. And along with that story came certain things that the story needed to tell its story. The orcs is what he used to tell a component of his story. So the orcs in his story represent things like industrialization, which is something that really affected him. He felt like the English countryside that he loved was being absorbed by industry. They represent evil and sin. They represent malice and hatred and all kinds of things that he felt were really strongly against his core Catholic beliefs. Things that he wanted to warn the world. This is what happens when you let evil fester. But because they serve that specific purpose, they end up causing problems for us. Ultimately, Tolkien's orcs were a literary device to communicate what he needed to communicate. They served the Dark Lords. They're servants of the evil ones. That would be Sauron and Morgoth. If you don't know about Morgoth, we can have a video about Morgoth later, but I digress. They serve evil. They are evil. They're deplorable in every single way. And to their core, they are utterly reprehensible and irredeemable. Now, that is incredibly powerful for the story that he told. But why is it that they won't work for us? Well, we don't always follow Tolkien's pattern of storytelling exactly. That's pretty obvious. We don't want to tell his exact story. We have something called integrity. At least I would think most of us do. We don't want to steal his story. We might want a part of his story that we like, that we want to share and say, hey, I got that from Tolkien. That's who part of my inspiration is. Nothing wrong with that. But among all the viciousness and brutality that the orcs represent, which to an extent can be a really cool touch to add to a story, they also lack many key traits that would be necessary for them to survive on their own. In fact, their survival is entirely up to the Dark Lords and those other masters they serve breeding them, but they don't even seem to breed. They come out of the ground. We've never really appeared to see a female orc or Uruk-hai. It's a little bit complicated, to say the very least. I mean, we don't even have a definite origin for them. There are conflicting stories, one told by Saruman and one in the Silmarillion, but again, a digression. They are, in certain senses, really cool because they are incredibly strong. They're vicious. They're evil, unquestionably evil. And it's nice to see that brutality, and you want to have something like that as an antagonistic force in your story, and that's cool. And some people have, of course, turned that on their heads, where they, are a moral force in their own way. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about Tolkien's orcs, and that's not what Tolkien's orcs were. Tolkien's orcs can't survive without a Dark Lord to guide them. It's actually pretty close to explicit in the stories. Without a Dark Lord, they fall apart. They don't have structure, they don't have leadership, and they end up turning on each other because they hate each other just as much as they hate man or elf or dwarf or hobbit. So among all the things that they lack, the greatest thing I would say that orcs lack is empathy. Without empathy, they're not going to be able to work with one another for their greater good. They don't care about the future, they care about getting what they want right now, which is normally destruction. And when all you want is destruction and war, it's a matter of time before you either get killed by every opponent that you encounter, or you just kill each other off, because you can find war inside your own society, assuming you can have anything resembling a society without empathy and with that kind of warmongering and lust. But that's generally the main reason. They are a literary device for Tolkien, and there's nothing redeemable about them. So in order to take something like Tolkien's orcs as an antagonistic force into your story, you have to have a similar primary evil behind them that's organizing them, and have them function more like the demons that they're kind of meant to represent anyway. Or you have to change them. You have to give them some kind of ability to stand each other. They have to have some kind of respect for one another, to the point where they're not going to just turn on each other the moment it becomes convenient or something can be gained, or even if it just becomes fun. There has to be something to let them stabilize as a society, or you have to treat them, again, like they were in Lord of the Rings, like a tool. If they're not treated like a tool and you want them to have something more like a World of Warcraft society, you have to mold them into that shape. And you can take a lot of inspiration from Tolkien's orcs if you want to, but understand, as you change them to fit into the mold that your story requires, they cease being Tolkien's orcs. And that's a good thing for your story. The point is, you understand it now, or you should have a better understanding of it, and you can think about what needs to change in order for you to use these orcs, or what pieces you might want to take from them and put into your story, into your orcs, if you even have orcs or some other antagonistic force. Ultimately, it's up to you, as with all things in the world building and writing process. Now, again, just reiterate, Tolkien's orcs are a literary device. That's why they worked for him and won't work for us unless your story parallels his very closely. And if you're close enough, it starts to look an awful lot like you're stealing his work and passing it off as something new. And I think we all have more integrity than that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like or thumbs up or whatever it's called. I'm dumb. Never mind. Leave a like. If you would like to see more, there's a pin and anvil here you can click right there nice and conveniently, and that will let you subscribe to me for some more stuff coming soon. If you have any questions, comments, or objections to something that I said, leave a comment below. I might have said something incorrect, and I'd like to be corrected, honestly, because I'm trying to be correct in all things where I can be. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you again soon, and expect some more videos in the coming days. Yeah.